The transport ship descended through the purple clouds of Viridian Prime, and Ji-hun pressed his face against the window. Below him stretched the Stellar Command Academy, a massive complex of silver towers and training grounds that had produced the galaxy's finest warriors for 600 years. His heart pounded. He was the first human to ever walk through those doors. The landing pad buzzed with activity. Dozens of species moved about, each more impressive than the last. Ji-hun saw cadets with forearms carrying equipment with ease. Others had thick armor plating covering their bodies like natural tanks. Some possessed wings that glittered in the alien sunlight. And then there was him, standing just under 6 feet tall with no claws, no armor, no enhanced senses. Just a young man from Earth wearing the standard cadet uniform that felt too stiff and new. "You must be the human," a deep voice rumbled behind him. Ji-hun turned to find himself staring at what looked like a walking fortress. The creature stood nearly 9 feet tall, covered in overlapping plates of natural armor. 4 eyes blinked at him from a broad face. "I am Vorin. I have been assigned as your roommate." Ji-hun extended his hand, then remembered that many species did not shake hands. He lowered it awkwardly. "I am Ji-hun Kim. It is nice to meet you." Vorin made a sound that might have been laughter. They paired the strongest species with the weakest. The Academy has a sense of humor. He turned and began walking. "Follow me. Orientation begins in 1 hour." The dormitory room was larger than Ji-hun expected. 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared bathroom. Vorin's side already held training weights that Ji-hun probably could not lift with both hands. He set his bag on his bed and sat down, feeling very small and very far from home. "Why did you come here?" Vorin asked suddenly. "Humans are new to the Federation. You have no military tradition in space. Your people are weak by galactic standards. No offense intended." "None taken," Ji-hun said, though it stung a bit. "My planet was almost destroyed by an asteroid 10 years ago. We could not stop it ourselves. The Federation saved us. I came here to learn how to protect my world." He paused. "And to prove that humans belong here." Vorin's 4 eyes studied him. "Proving yourself will be difficult. The Academy does not accept weakness." The orientation hall held 300 cadets from 47 different species. Ji-hun found a seat near the back, very aware that dozens of eyes tracked his movement. He spotted another human across the room, a young woman who gave him a small wave. At least he was not completely alone. The lights dimmed and a figure emerged on the stage. Headmaster Quelix was a Verdani, tall and thin with skin that shimmered like oil on water. His species was ancient, one of the first to achieve space travel, and they possessed powerful telepathic abilities. "Welcome to the Stellar Command Academy," Quelix's voice echoed in the hall, though Ji-hun suspected the words formed directly in his mind. "You have been chosen from millions of applicants. You represent the best your species has to offer, but here you are all equal. Here you are all cadets, and most of you will fail." A murmur ran through the crowd. Quelix continued, "This year's curriculum will be the most challenging in our history. The galaxy faces new threats. We must produce new kinds of warriors. Only the strongest, the smartest, and the most adaptable will graduate." After the speech, cadets gathered in the courtyard for preliminary assessments. Ji-hun joined the line for physical testing, his stomach tight with anxiety. One by one, cadets demonstrated their abilities. A Thex cadet lifted weights that would crush a car. A Skrell cadet with wings flew through an obstacle course in seconds. A reptilian Vrul cadet smashed through a concrete barrier with his bare fists. Then it was Ji-hun's turn. He approached the lifting station. The instructor, a massive creature with too many limbs, looked down at him. "Standard strength test. Lift what you can." Ji-hun grabbed the bar and pulled. It barely moved. He strained, his face red, and managed to lift it halfway before his arms gave out. Laughter rippled through the watching cadets. 40 kilograms, the instructor announced, marking something on his data pad. "That is very low." The speed test was worse. Ji-hun ran as fast as he could, but other cadets blurred past him like he was standing still. The durability test involved withstanding strikes from a training dummy. Ji-hun lasted 3 hits before stumbling back, while others took dozens without flinching. "Bottom 15% in all categories," the instructor told him. "Are you sure you belong here, human?" That evening, Ji-hun sat in the cafeteria poking at food he was not sure how to eat. The young woman he had seen earlier approached his table. "Mind if I sit?" "Please," Ji-hun said, grateful for company. "I am Hyami Park," she said. "Also from Earth, also wondering what I got myself into." She had kind eyes and a determined set to her jaw. Those tests were brutal. I knew we would be weaker than most species, Jihoon said. But seeing it demonstrated like that made us look pathetic? Hayami finished. Yeah, I know. Half the cadets already think we are a joke. A shadow fell across their table. Jihoon looked up to see a Vril cadet, scales glittering green and gold. He was surrounded by other elite-looking cadets. Well, look at this. The humans are bonding over their inadequacy. His voice dripped with contempt. I am Korath. My species has won the Grand War game 17 times. We are warriors born and bred. Good for you, Jihoon said quietly. Korath leaned down, his reptilian face inches from Jihoon's. You do not belong here. Humans are a charity admission. The Federation feels sorry for your weak little species, so they let you play soldier. But this is not a game. When real training begins, you will wash out. I give you 2 weeks before you quit and run home to your primitive little planet. He straightened up and walked away, his group laughing. Other cadets watched the exchange. Some looked sympathetic. Others nodded in agreement with Korath. 2 weeks, Yemi said softly. He thinks we will quit in 2 weeks. Jihoon watched Korath's retreating back. Something cold and determined settled in his chest. Then we prove him wrong. A winged cadet landed at their table with surprising grace. That was Korath. He is the worst, but not the only one who thinks that way. Most cadets believe humans do not belong. The Skrell's feathers were deep blue and his eyes held intelligence. I am Talrix. My species values honor in combat. I do not believe it is honorable to mock those who are different. Thank you, Jihoon said. Talrix tilted his head. But I am curious. Humans are weak. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced abilities. How did your species survive? What made you strong enough to develop technology and join the Federation? Jihoon thought about Earth, about humanity's long, bloody history, about surviving ice ages and predators and diseases and wars. We learned to think. We learned to adapt. We learned to use tools and tactics. We learned that when you cannot win with strength, you win with strategy. Strategy, Talrix repeated. Interesting. He spread his wings. I will watch you humans. I suspect you may surprise everyone. He launched into the air and flew away. Vareen approached the table carrying a tray of food. I have been listening to the talk. Many cadets believe you will fail. The odds are posted at 10 to 1 against humans surviving the first month. What do you think? Hayami asked. Voron's 4 eyes blinked thoughtfully. I think the Academy has never seen humans before. I think they are judging you by standards that do not apply. I think this may be more interesting than anyone expects. He sat down heavily. Also, I think you will need allies. The Academy is competitive. Species form groups. You humans are alone. Will you be our ally? Jihoon asked. Perhaps, Voron said, if you can prove you are worth the trouble. But there was something like respect in his voice. That night, lying in his bunk, Jihoon stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, real training would begin. He was weaker, slower, and more fragile than almost every other cadet. The odds were against him. Everyone expected him to fail. But humans had always been good at beating the odds. They had survived when everything said they should not. And Jihoon intended to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The alarm screamed through the dormitory at 3 a.m. Jihoon jerked awake as lights flooded the room. Voron was already standing, somehow alert despite the sudden wake-up. Instructors marched through the halls shouting orders. All cadets to the landing bay. Full gear, you have 10 minutes. Jihoon scrambled into his uniform, grabbed his pack, and ran. The landing bay was chaos. Hundreds of confused cadets gathered as instructors herded them toward transport ships. Headmaster Quellix's voice boomed across the space. Your first major test begins now, the Wilderness Survival Exercise. You will be dropped on Moon Tarvus 9 with minimal supplies. Your objective is to reach the extraction point 200 kilometers away. You have 5 days. Teams are assigned randomly. Failure means expulsion from the Academy. Jihoon's stomach dropped. 5 days in an alien wilderness. He had barely been at the Academy for a week. He had no idea what to expect. A datapad was thrust into his hands. He looked at the screen and felt his heart sink further. His assigned partner was Korath, the Vril who had mocked him, who had promised he would fail. Of all the cadets in the Academy, he was stuck with the one who hated him most. Korath appeared beside him, his scaled face twisted in disgust. Perfect. I am partnered with Deadweight. Try not to slow me down too much, human. The transport dropped them in a rocky canyon as twin suns rose over the horizon. The temperature was already climbing. Ji-hoon checked his supplies, a water bottle, basic rations for 3 days, a knife, a compass, and an emergency beacon that would automatically expel him from the test if activated. Korath shouldered his pack. I am taking the direct route. Follow if you can. He started walking at a pace that Ji-hoon knew he could not maintain for long. Wait, Ji-hoon called. Shouldn't we plan? Work together? Korath looked back, his expression cold. You will slow me down. I do not need a partner, especially a weak one. Survive on your own if you can. He turned and disappeared into the rocky terrain. Ji-hoon stood alone in the alien wilderness. Fear threatened to overwhelm him, but he forced it down. Panicking would not help. He pulled out the map loaded on his datapad and studied it carefully. The direct route Korath took was the obvious choice. 200 kilometers across open terrain, fast if you had speed and stamina. But Ji-hoon did not have those advantages. He studied the topography, looking for alternatives. There was a cave system marked in red, designated as dangerous. It cut through a mountain range and would reduce the distance by almost 50 kilometers. The warning label said something about unstable tunnels and native predators. Dangerous for other species, maybe. But Ji-hoon had an idea. His ancestors had lived in caves for thousands of years. Humans knew darkness and enclosed spaces in a way most spacefaring species did not. He marked his route and started walking. The first day was brutal. The heat was intense and his water supply was limited. But Ji-hoon had learned something during survival training on Earth. He found rocks that seemed to have morning dew and used his shirt to collect moisture. It was not much, but it helped. He used his knife to cut strips from a tough plant that seemed to hold water in its fibers. The liquid tasted awful but was not poisonous according to his scanner. As night fell, the temperature dropped sharply. Ji-hoon found a sheltered spot between rocks and used dry brush to start a fire. It took time, but he managed. The flames were small but provided warmth. He rationed his food carefully, eating just enough to keep his energy up. On the second day, he reached the cave entrance. It was dark and foreboding. His datapad showed that no other cadets had taken this route. Smart, probably. But Ji-hoon did not have the luxury of playing it safe. He used strips of cloth soaked in plant resin to make crude torches. The light was weak, but it was enough. Inside the caves, the temperature was cooler and more stable. Water dripped from the ceiling. He found underground streams and refilled his bottle. The caves were a maze, but Ji-hoon moved carefully, marking his path with scratches on the wall. On the third day, deep in the cave system, he heard screams echoing through the tunnels. He followed the sound and found a sight that made him freeze. 3 cadets were trapped on a ledge, surrounded by creatures that looked like 6-legged wolves with too many teeth. One of the cadets was Hayemi. The creatures had the cadets pinned. Every time they tried to move, the beast snapped and lunged. Ji-hoon recognized the other 2 cadets as well, both from species much stronger than humans. But strength did not matter when you were trapped. Ji-hoon's mind raced. He could not fight those creatures directly. They would tear him apart. But maybe he did not need to fight them. He grabbed a handful of the dry fungi growing on the cave walls. It was brittle and caught fire easily. He lit several pieces and threw them toward the creatures, not trying to hit them, just creating a line of fire between them and an escape route. The creatures hissed and backed away from the flames. Animals feared fire. It was a primal instinct most species shared. Then Ji-hoon shouted, his voice echoing through the caves. He banged his knife against rocks, creating a cacophony of noise that bounced off the walls, making it sound like something much larger was approaching. The creatures panicked. They ran deeper into the caves, away from the fire and noise. Hayemi and the other cadets scrambled down from the ledge. Ji-hoon, Hayemi gasped. You saved us. We need to move before they come back, Ji-hoon said. Follow me. I know the way through. One of the cadets, a Thex named Goran, stared at him. You are the human. The weak one. How did you do that? Fire and noise, Ji-hoon said simply. Primitive tactics, but effective. He led them through the cave system, sharing his marked path. They emerged on the other side of the mountain range on the 4th day. The extraction point was visible in the distance, across a flat plain. Hayemi grabbed his arm. Thank you. We would have died in there. We help each other, Ji-hoon said. That is what humans do. They walked together toward the extraction point. As they approached, Ji-hoon saw that many cadets had already arrived. Korath was there, looking smug and confident. His expression changed when he saw Ji-hoon. "Impossible," Korath hissed. "You should not be here yet. The direct route is faster." "I did not take the direct route," Ji-hoon said calmly. "I took the smart route." The extraction ship arrived right on schedule. Instructors checked off cadets as they boarded. Out of 300 cadets, only 200 had made it. 100 had activated their emergency beacons and been expelled from the test. Commander Thexel, a scarred veteran who taught tactical studies, approached Ji-hoon. "Cadet Kim, you arrived with 40% of the time remaining. You also assisted 3 other cadets who were in danger. Explain your strategy." Ji-hoon stood straight. "Sir, I analyzed my strengths and weaknesses. I cannot compete in speed or stamina with most species, so I looked for a route that played to different advantages. The caves were dangerous, but I have experience with enclosed spaces and primitive survival techniques. I used fire and sound to drive off predators because those tactics do not require physical strength." The commander's eyes narrowed. "You took a route marked dangerous because it suited your abilities better than the safe route." "Yes, sir." "Interesting." The commander made notes on his datapad. "Most cadets avoid danger. You evaluated risk differently. You chose the path others feared because you understood it better than they did." Back at the academy, the rankings were posted. Ji-hoon had placed in the top 40% of cadets. Not the best, but far from the worst. More importantly, he had survived when everyone expected him to fail. That evening, Voran found him in their room. "The instructors are talking about you. They reviewed the footage from your survival test. They are surprised. Why? Because you did not try to match other species in their strengths. You changed the game entirely. You used fire, which most modern species consider primitive. You used noise and deception. You helped others instead of competing. These are not standard academy tactics," Ji-hoon shrugged. "They are human tactics. When you are weaker, you think differently." Talrix landed on their window ledge, his wings folded. "I watched your test footage, too. My species values honor and direct combat. But what you did in those caves was remarkable. You defeated enemies without fighting them. How? On Earth, humans were never the strongest or fastest," Ji-hoon explained. "We survived by being smarter. We learned to use tools, to control fire, to hunt in groups. We learned that a smaller force with better tactics can defeat a larger force with just strength." "This is not taught at the academy," Talrix said thoughtfully. "We learn to maximize our natural advantages. We are not taught to overcome disadvantages with strategy." Hayami joined them, along with Goran, the Thex cadet Ji-hoon had saved. "We owe you our lives," Goran said formally. "My species pays its debts. If you need assistance, call on me." "Same here," Hayami said. "Also, I have been thinking, we humans are at a disadvantage in almost every physical test. But maybe that is not the only way to succeed here. Maybe we need to show them a different way to fight." Ji-hoon looked at the small group gathered around him. Different species, different strengths, but willing to learn. An idea was forming in his mind. "Want to try something? We could start a study group. Share tactics and strategies. Learn from each other." Voran's 4 eyes gleamed. "A group that focuses on strategy instead of strength. Unorthodox." The classroom was packed with cadets when Professor Velric began his lecture on warfare history. The ancient Quellan had taught at the academy for over a century, and his lessons were considered essential but boring. Most cadets saw it as an easy credit, a break from the brutal physical training. "Today we examine primitive species conflicts," Velric announced, his 3 eyes scanning the room. "These early wars help us understand how species develop before achieving space travel. Most follow predictable patterns: territorial disputes, resource competition, tribal dominance struggles." A hologram appeared, showing Earth spinning slowly. Ji-hoon sat up straighter. "Here we have Terra, or Earth as the natives call it. The humans fought 2 major planetary conflicts they call world wars. Millions died over resource disputes and tribal territories. Quite primitive, really. They used chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, and engaged in total warfare tactics that we consider barbaric today. Moving on to more civilized species." Ji-hoon raised his hand. "Professor, may I speak?" Velric looked annoyed. "This is a lecture, not a discussion." "I understand, sir. But I am human. I think I can provide context that might be valuable." Several cadets laughed. Korath called out, "What context? That your species is violent and backwards?" Professor Velric held up a hand for silence. He studied Ji-hoon with interest. "Very well. Enlighten us, Cadet Kim. Tell us about human warfare." Ji-hoon stood, his heart pounding. Every eye in the room was on him. You called our wars primitive. You are right that they were terrible. Millions died, but they were not simple tribal disputes. They were something else, something the galaxy has not seen before. He walked to the hologram controls. May I, sir? Velric gestured permission. Ji-hoon pulled up images from Earth's history, battlefields, strategy maps, weapons. Humans are weak, Ji-hoon began. We have no claws, no armor, no venom. On our planet, we were prey for thousands of years. Big cats hunted us. Bears killed us. Even smaller predators were dangerous. We should have gone extinct. The room was quiet now, watching him. But we learned something. We learned that strength is not everything. We learned to hunt animals 10 times our size by working in groups. We learned to use weapons, to set traps, to fight in ways that did not rely on physical power. And when we fought each other, we brought those same lessons to warfare. He displayed an image of trench warfare. This is from our First World War. Both sides had millions of soldiers. The fighting lasted 4 years. But it was not about having the strongest army. It was about strategy, logistics, and tactics. Armies dug tunnels under enemy positions and detonated explosives. They used poison gas because they could not overpower the enemy directly. They learned camouflage and deception. Talrix leaned forward, his wings rustling. You made weapons to compensate for weakness. Yes, but more than that. We learned to think like prey that became predator. We learned to use terrain, weather, darkness. We learned that a smaller force in a good position can defeat a larger force in a bad position. Ji-hoon pulled up more images. Our Second World War was worse. Over 60 million dead. But look at what happened. My people, the Koreans, were occupied by another human nation. We could not fight openly because we were weaker. So we fought in secret. We sabotaged supply lines. We spread false information. We made the occupiers paranoid, always looking over their shoulders. We call it guerrilla warfare, cowardly warfare, Korath spat. No honor in hiding and ambushing. No, Ji-hoon said firmly. Smart warfare. If you are weaker, why would you fight in a way that favors the strong? That is not cowardly. That is survival. He displayed another image. Here is something we call the Battle of Thermopylae. 300 Spartan soldiers held a narrow mountain pass against a Persian army of maybe 100,000. They held for 3 days. They chose terrain where numbers did not matter. The narrow pass meant the Persians could not use their full force. Geography became a weapon. Professor Velric stroked his chin thoughtfully. Asymmetric warfare. Using environmental advantages to offset physical disadvantages. This is not commonly taught. Because most species do not need it, Himi called out from her seat. Most galactic species evolved as apex predators. Strong, armed, dangerous. They never had to be clever to survive. Humans did. We had to be smart or die. Ji-hoon nodded at her, then continued. We also learned psychological warfare. We learned that fear is as effective as weapons. In our wars, we broadcast propaganda to make enemies surrender without fighting. We dressed elite soldiers in frightening uniforms to intimidate opponents. We spread rumors to destroy enemy morale. We faked troop movements to make enemies prepare for attacks that never came. A Thex cadet raised a massive hand. This seems like deception, dishonorable. Is it dishonorable to survive? Ji-hoon asked. Is it dishonorable to protect your people using your intelligence instead of your muscles? Humans learned that in war there is no such thing as fighting fair. There is only winning or losing, living or dying. He pulled up one final image. Mushroom clouds over cities. The room went very quiet. This is what we call nuclear weapons, bombs that can destroy entire cities. We built them during our Second World War. And here is the terrifying part. We used them. We dropped 2 on enemy cities. Hundreds of thousands died instantly. Many more died slowly from radiation. Vorin made a sound of horror. You destroyed your own planet? Almost, Ji-hoon said quietly. After the war ended, 2 human nations built enough nuclear weapons to destroy all life on Earth several times over. We call it mutually assured destruction. If you attack me with these weapons, I will attack you back and we both die. It is insane, but it worked. For 50 years, it prevented major wars because everyone was too afraid to start one. Professor Velric stood up, his expression serious. You are describing tactics that most species would never consider. Deception, psychological manipulation, weaponry designed specifically to maximize casualties, even self-destructive deterrence. This is disturbing. I know, Ji-hoon said. We are not proud of everything we did. Millions died. We scarred our planet. We nearly destroyed ourselves. But we learned. We survived. And every tactic, every strategy came from the same place. We were weak, so we had to be smart. Korath stood up, his scales flushed dark with anger. This is exactly what I said. Humans are barbaric. You fight without honor. You use cowardly tactics and call it strategy. You have no place in a civilized military academy. Sit down, Cadet Korath, Professor Velric said sharply. Let me ask you something. In the last Grand War game, your team had superior numbers and firepower, yet you lost to inferior forces because they ambushed your supply lines. How is that different from what Cadet Kim describes? Korath's mouth opened and closed. He had no answer. The difference, Velric continued, is that what happened to you was an accident. The other team got lucky. But what Cadet Kim describes is systematic, deliberate. Humans developed these tactics over thousands of years because they had to. They made a doctrine out of weakness. He turned to Ji-hoon. Cadet Kim, I am officially requesting that you prepare a full presentation on human warfare tactics for the Advanced Tactics course, if you are willing. Ji-hoon's eyes widened. Yes, sir. I would be honored. After class, cadets gathered in small groups talking excitedly. Some looked disturbed, others fascinated. Ji-hoon felt drained, emotionally exhausted from sharing his species' bloody history. Talrix approached with several other cadets. That was remarkable. My species has fought wars for thousands of years, but we always fought with honor. Direct combat, one-on-one or army versus army. We never considered fighting the way you describe. Because you never needed to, Hyemi said, joining them. Your species has wings, enhanced strength, and warrior instincts. You were born with advantages. Humans were born with nothing but our brains. A small crowd was forming, cadets from a dozen different species all listening intently. Goran the Thex, who Ji-hoon had saved in the caves, spoke up. I want to learn these tactics. My species is strong but slow. We often lose to faster opponents. But if we could use terrain and strategy like you describe. Exactly, Ji-hoon said, warming to the topic. Every species has weaknesses. But if you learn to fight in ways that minimize your weaknesses and maximize your strengths, you become much more dangerous. Vorin rumbled thoughtfully. You mentioned fighting in groups. Humans hunt in packs like some predators do. My species fights individually because our armor makes us nearly invulnerable in single combat. But together with strategy, you could be unstoppable, Ji-hoon finished. The study group that had started after the survival exercise was growing. By the end of the week, 20 cadets from 15 different species were meeting regularly. They shared tactics from their homeworlds. They studied human military history. They practiced combined arm strategies that played to multiple species' strengths, but not everyone was happy about it. Korath and his followers saw it as contamination of proper military doctrine. They began calling Ji-hoon's group the Deception Squad as an insult. Fights broke out in training rooms. Tensions rose. Headmaster Quelix called Ji-hoon to his office. The ancient Verdani's chambers were filled with artifacts from 1,000 worlds. He sat behind a desk made from crystallized starlight. Sit, Cadet Kim. Ji-hoon sat nervously. The headmaster's telepathic presence was overwhelming. The announcement came during morning assembly. Headmaster Quelix stood before the assembled cadets, his presence commanding absolute silence. In 2 weeks, the Grand War game begins. This year marks the 600th anniversary of the Academy. To honor this milestone, we are making changes. The simulation will be larger, more complex, and more challenging than ever before. 50 cadets per side. Full strategic command. 1 month duration. Excited whispers filled the hall. The Grand War game was legendary. It was the final test that separated elite cadets from merely good ones. Winning it meant guaranteed placement in the Federation's top military units. Team commanders will be selected based on overall performance, tactical thinking, and leadership potential. I will now announce the commanders. Quelix read through several names. Experienced cadets, mostly from species known for military excellence. Then he paused. For Red Team, the commander will be Cadet Korath of the Vrul. Korath stood, accepting applause with a smug expression. He was the obvious choice. His species had won the Grand War game 17 times. He had top marks in combat. For Blue Team, Quelix continued, the commander will be Cadet Ji-hoon Kim of Earth. The hall erupted. Half the cadets cheered. The other half shouted in protest. A human had never commanded in the Grand War game. Ji-hoon sat frozen, unable to believe what he heard. This is a joke, someone yelled. Humans have no business commanding. Quelix raised a hand for silence. The decision is final. Cadet Kim has demonstrated exceptional strategic thinking. He has introduced new tactical concepts to the Academy. He will have his chance to prove their worth. After assembly, Ji-hoon was mobbed by both supporters and critics. Hyami fought through the crowd to reach him. "You are going to command against Korath!" "This is huge. This is terrifying," Ji-hoon corrected. "He has been training his whole life for this. His species are natural warriors. I have been at the Academy for 3 months. Voron appeared beside them. You need to select your team quickly. Cadets will volunteer, but you get to accept or reject them. Choose wisely. The team selection took 2 days. Ji-hoon chose carefully. He picked Hemi as his intelligence officer because she understood human strategy. He picked Voreen as his defensive coordinator because the Thex understood holding positions. He picked Talrix to command mobile strike forces because the Skrell could think creatively. He selected Goran and others who had shown they could adapt and learn new tactics. Korath picked the strongest, fastest, most naturally gifted cadets. His team looked like an unstoppable force. The simulation took place in massive computer systems. Each commander had a private command center with staff officers and holographic displays. They controlled virtual armies, fleets, and resources. Everything felt real. Casualties were tracked. Supplies mattered. Time moved at an accelerated rate so that 1 real day equaled 1 simulated week. Ji-hoon studied the starting conditions and felt his stomach sink. Blue team was given the disadvantaged position. Fewer resources, worse starting territory, inferior fleet composition. It was designed to test how commanders handled adversity. Korath's red team started with 3 heavily industrialized planets and a fleet of warships. Ji-hoon's blue team had 2 agricultural worlds and mostly transport ships converted for combat. "They set us up to fail," one of Ji-hoon's officers muttered. "No," Ji-hoon said firmly. "They gave Korath advantages that match his thinking. He will use overwhelming force because that is what his species does. But advantages can become weaknesses if you know how to exploit them." He gathered his command team. "Korath will attack aggressively. He will try to crush us quickly with superior firepower. Everyone expects him to win in the first week. So we do not fight him directly. We use what we learned about human warfare. We fight smart, not hard." Yemi pulled up intelligence reports. "His fleet is concentrated. He is moving toward our main colony with everything he has. Classic hammer blow tactic. Perfect," Ji-hoon said. "Let him come. We evacuate the colony, make it look panicked and disorganized. Leave behind false intelligence about our fleet location. Then we hit his supply lines." The first week of the simulation was chaos. Korath's fleet swept through space expecting glorious battle. Instead, they found empty colonies. Blue team forces retreated, scattered, seemed to be in disarray. Korath pursued eagerly. "He is overextending," Talrix observed. "His supply lines are stretched thin." "Now," Ji-hoon ordered. Blue team strike forces, small and fast, emerged from hiding. They attacked red team supply depots. They destroyed fuel stations. They captured cargo ships. Nothing dramatic, nothing that made headlines. Just small cuts that bled resources. Korath tried to respond, but his massive fleet was too far from home base. He had to turn back, his advance stalled. The simulation instructors watching were impressed. 1 week in, and the supposed weaker force had negated the stronger force's main advantage. That was guerrilla warfare, Commander Thexal noted from the observation deck. "Hit and run. Deny the enemy decisive battle." In week 2, Ji-hoon launched Operation Broken Shield. Blue team forces captured a red team communications relay. Hyami's intelligence unit hacked it and began feeding false information to Korath's forces. They made it seem like blue team was concentrating forces in one sector. Korath took the bait. He moved his fleet to intercept. Instead, he found a minefield and long-range missile platforms. His fleet took heavy damage before realizing it was a trap. Meanwhile, blue team's real forces were capturing lightly defended red team colonies. Korath was furious. "Deception. Cowardice. Face me in real battle." But Ji-hoon would not. Every time Korath concentrated his forces, blue team scattered. Every time he split his forces to cover more territory, blue team struck at the weak points. It was like trying to punch smoke. In week 3, Ji-hoon escalated. He ordered what his team called Operation Trojan Horse. Blue team engineers designed a virus that infected red team computers through captured equipment. It was not enough to shut systems down, just enough to introduce errors. Navigation was off by small amounts. Sensors sometimes showed false readings. Communications had occasional delays, nothing obvious. Nothing that screamed sabotage, just enough to make Red Team doubt their own systems. "This is psychological warfare," Headmaster Quelix observed. "He is making the enemy paranoid." Korath started suspecting everything. He wasted time checking systems. He second-guessed his own officers. His decision-making slowed. The psychological pressure was immense. Then Ji-hoon made his boldest move. He sent a small strike team deep into Red Team territory with a mission that shocked his own officers. "You want to do what?" Foran asked, disbelieving. "A suicide mission," Ji-hoon confirmed. 10 ships. Their job is to destroy Red Team's main command relay and then immediately surrender. They will not escape. They will be captured or destroyed. "That is sacrificing our people," one officer protested. "It is a simulation," Ji-hoon reminded them. "No one really dies. But in real war, sometimes you have to sacrifice pieces to win the game. Red Team does not think that way. Korath will never expect it because his species values individual warrior glory. They would never sacrifice warriors deliberately." The mission was launched in week 4. 10 Blue Team ships fought their way to Red Team's command center. They detonated massive explosives, destroying the communication hub that coordinated Red Team's entire fleet. Then they surrendered as planned. Red Team's network went dark. For 6 hours, Korath could not communicate with half his forces. In that window, Blue Team struck everywhere at once. They captured key positions. They destroyed resource centers. They hit so many targets that even when Red Team's communications were restored, they could not respond effectively. Korath tried to reorganize, but it was too late. His forces were scattered. His supply lines were broken. His officers no longer trusted their systems. His morale was shattered. In the final week, Blue Team forced a decisive battle on their terms. They chose terrain that negated Red Team's superior firepower, using asteroid fields and nebula clouds that interfered with sensors. When the battle ended, Blue Team had won despite starting with 40% less military power. The simulation ended. Instructors and cadets who had been watching rushed to the command centers. Ji-hoon stepped out exhausted. His team looked drained but triumphant. Korath emerged from his command center, his expression stunned. "How we were stronger, better equipped, more experienced." Ji-hoon faced him calmly. "You fought the way you were taught, the way your species has always fought. Direct force, overwhelming power. But I fought the way humans learned to fight. We used deception. We attacked where you were weak, not where you were strong. We made you doubt yourself. We changed the type of battle you were fighting." "It was not honorable," Korath said, but there was no anger in his voice now, only confusion. "No," Ji-hoon agreed. "It was effective." Professor Velric approached, followed by Headmaster Quelix and a dozen senior instructors. "Cadet Kim, what you just demonstrated changes everything. You defeated a superior force using tactics that most species would never consider. You used information warfare, psychological operations, asymmetric strategy, and deliberate sacrifice of forces." Commander Thexal stepped forward. "We have been watching humans for 3 months. You arrived as the weakest species at the Academy, but you have proven something crucial." The morning after the Grand War Game, Ji-hoon woke to find his door surrounded by cadets. Dozens of them from species he barely recognized, all wanting to talk to him. Some wanted to join his study group. Others wanted to understand what happened. A few just wanted to see the human who had changed everything. Foran helped him navigate through the crowd. "You are famous now. Everyone is talking about the simulation. Some people love what you did. Others hate it, but no one can ignore it." In the cafeteria, conversation stopped when Ji-hoon entered. He felt hundreds of eyes on him. It was uncomfortable. He was just trying to survive the academy, not start a revolution. Hayami saved him a seat. The instructors called an emergency meeting last night. Apparently, the Grand War Game results have caused what they call a paradigm crisis. Your tactics work too well. That is a problem? Ji-hoon asked. For some people, yes. The Academy has taught warfare the same way for 6 centuries. Strong species dominate. Physical power matters most. You proved that wrong in front of everyone. That makes people uncomfortable. 3 days later, an academy-wide assembly was called. Every cadet, every instructor, and several members of the Federation Military Council attended. The enormous auditorium was packed. Headmaster Quelix stood at the center stage. his presence commanding immediate silence. His telepathic voice resonated in every mind present. We have taught at this academy for 600 years. We have trained warriors from 47 species. We have produced generals, admirals, and heroes. We believed we understood warfare. He paused, letting the words sink in. 3 months ago, a human arrived. His species is classified as physically weak. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced abilities. By our traditional standards, they should not have been accepted. Some argued against it, but we admitted Cadet Ji-hoon Kim because humanity deserved a chance. Ji-hoon felt every eye in the auditorium turn toward him. His face burned. What happened next surprised us all. Cadet Kim did not try to match stronger species in strength. He changed how the game was played. In the survival exercise, he chose dangerous terrain that favored intelligence over power. In tactical studies, he introduced concepts we had never formally taught. And in the Grand War game, he defeated our best tactical student using strategies we considered primitive or dishonorable. Quellix's 3 eyes swept across the audience. I want to be clear. What Cadet Kim demonstrated was not cheating. It was not luck. It was not a fluke. It was systematic, deliberate, and effective. It was warfare as his species has practiced it for thousands of years. Warfare born from weakness. Warfare that emphasizes intelligence over strength. He gestured, and holographic displays appeared showing battle footage from the simulation. Watch how Blue Team avoids direct confrontation. How they attack supply lines instead of armies. How they use deception and false information. How they make the enemy doubt their own systems. How they sacrifice forces deliberately to achieve strategic goals. These are not tactics we teach. Perhaps they should be. A rule instructor stood up, scales flushed with agitation. Headmaster, with respect, these tactics are dishonorable. They rely on deception, cowardice, and avoiding fair combat. They go against everything the Federation military stands for. Do they? Quellix challenged. Or do they go against what we are comfortable with? Tell me, Instructor Karth, if an enemy used these tactics against the Federation, would we be prepared? Based on what we just witnessed, I would say no. Silence greeted this statement. The truth was uncomfortable but undeniable. Commander Thexall stood. I have been teaching tactics for 80 years. I have studied every major war in galactic history. What the humans showed us is that we have been preparing to fight the last war repeatedly. Strong species dominate through force. Weak species submit or are eliminated. That has been the pattern for millennia. He turned to face the assembly. But humans did not follow that pattern. On their world, they were prey. By all logic, they should have gone extinct. Instead, they became the dominant species on their planet by being smarter than everything that tried to kill them. They bring that same mentality to warfare. They fight to win, not to be honorable. And in real war, is that not the point? A debate erupted. Instructors and senior cadets argued passionately. Some defended traditional methods. Others argued for incorporating human tactics. The assembly lasted 4 hours. Finally, Headmaster Quellix called for silence. I have made my decision. Effective immediately. The academy curriculum will be restructured. We will teach traditional methods, but we will also teach human warfare concepts, asymmetric tactics, psychological operations, information warfare, strategic deception, deliberate sacrifice for strategic gain. Every cadet will learn these concepts. The announcement sent shockwaves through the assembly. Quellix continued. Humanity's status within the Federation will be upgraded from probationary species to strategic consultant species. They will advise on military doctrine and tactics. Several Federation worlds have already requested human military advisors. He looked directly at Ji-hoon. Cadet Kim, you and Cadet Park will be offered positions as junior instructors while completing your final year. You will teach what humans know about warfare. You will help develop the new curriculum. This is not optional. The galaxy needs what you can teach. After the assembly, chaos erupted. News spread across the Federation within hours. Humanity, the weak newcomer species, had revolutionized military thinking at the galaxy's most prestigious academy. Reactions were mixed. Some species welcomed the new ideas. Others protested that the Federation was abandoning honor and tradition. Ji-hoon found himself in Headmaster Quellix's office again, this time with Hyemi, Commander Thexall, and several other senior instructors. You understand what has happened? Quellix asked. You did not just win a simulation. You have changed how the Federation thinks about warfare. This has political implications far beyond the Academy. I did not mean to cause trouble, Ji-hoon said. I just used what I knew. Human tactics. Human strategy. That is exactly why this matters, Thexal said. You were not trying to revolutionize anything. You were just trying to survive using the methods your species developed. That authenticity is what makes it so powerful. You showed us our blind spots, Hemi spoke up. Sir, will there be resistance to these changes? Absolutely, Quelix confirmed. Many species will resist. They will argue that human methods are barbaric or dishonorable. But the military council understands reality. If humans can do this, so can our enemies. We must adapt or become vulnerable. Over the following weeks, the academy transformed. New courses were created. Human military history became mandatory study. Ji-hoon and Hyemi taught classes on tactics that seemed alien to most students. Deception operations, guerrilla warfare, psychological manipulation, resource denial strategies. Some cadets embraced it eagerly. Talrix became one of the best students, combining Skrell mobility with human tactics to devastating effect. Forin developed defensive strategies that used deception and false positions. Even Korath attended every class, absorbing the lessons that had defeated him. But others resisted. A group of traditional cadets boycotted the classes. They argued that the academy was losing its soul by teaching cowardly tactics. Tensions rose. Fights broke out. The academy had to assign security. 6 months after the Grand War Game, Ji-hoon stood before a new class of first-year cadets. The auditorium held 300 students from 47 species. More human cadets had been admitted. Other species sent their brightest students, wanting them exposed to the new thinking. My name is Cadet Instructor Ji-hoon Kim, he began. I am human. My species is weak by galactic standards. We have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. On our homeworld, we were prey for thousands of years. We should have died out. The cadets watched silently. This was his standard introduction now, and it always got their attention. But we did not die out. We survived by being smarter than the things that hunted us. We learned to make weapons from stones and sticks. We learned to control fire. We learned to hunt in groups and share information. We learned that being weak forces you to be clever. He paced the stage. When humans fought each other, we brought those same lessons to warfare. We could not afford to be honorable when our survival was at stake. So we learned to fight dirty, to deceive, to ambush, to use terrain and weather and psychology as weapons. We learned that a smaller force with better tactics can defeat a larger force that relies only on strength. A cadet raised a clawed hand. Is that not cowardly? Ji-hoon smiled. He got this question every time. If your family was in danger and you were weaker than the threat, would you fight honorably and lose? Or would you fight smart and win? In real war, your duty is to protect your people and complete your mission. Honor does not matter if you are dead. Another cadet, a massive Thex, spoke up. But my species values honor above all. We are warriors. We fight face to face, and that is good, Ji-hoon acknowledged. Your species is strong. You can afford to fight that way. But what happens when you face an enemy who does not fight fair, who attacks your supply lines instead of your army, who uses deception and traps? If you only know honorable combat, you will lose to an enemy who fights smart. He pulled up a holographic display. Today we study Earth's Battle of Canny,